welcome to the November 12th, 2024 Penfield Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting. I'm Don Hoyler, and I will be leading the meeting tonight. So welcome to people in the audience and everyone watching on PCTV. The agenda had been previously posted, and it's available for anyone here to look at. So, having said that, if anyone has any additions or deletions to the agenda, please let me know. Seeing none, we'll proceed. The minutes from our October 8th meeting have been distributed, and if anyone has any comments, we can take those now. Otherwise, we'll approve those minutes. Okay, so those minutes are approved. For discussion topics, we'll start with the Penfield Trails Committee. Bob Ansaldi is not able to be with us tonight. I think he's celebrating his son's victory in the county judge race.
Oh,
yeah,
that was his son.
That was his son.
I figured it was.
So they're off celebrating somewhere. So we'll talk about guided hikes. We've had, since the last meeting, 3 hikes, and it's been a really great fall. I think all 3 hikes, we had really great weather, and they all went very well. So October 12th was one of our guided hikes that we do, the second Saturday of every month. That was the Coyote Den Trail in Ellison Park. And I think we had 12 community hikers and 4 Trails Committee. We had beautiful weather. There was the highlight, I think, is the Overlook Trail that goes up high over Redmond Lake, and people were taking pictures, and it was a really, really nice hike. And then just this past Saturday, our guided hike, the one hike this year that we did outside of Penfield was at Washington Grove, a city of Rochester Park. Many people know the reservoir at Cobb's Hill. Not everyone knows that there's a grove adjacent to that with some old growth trees and such. There's a group, the Friends of Washington Grove, and they had a representative, Peter Deebs, who's a naturalist. And he primarily led the hike, and it was amazing. It was full of really good information. It was all very interesting. We covered about 2.5 miles and took almost 2 hours, mostly because of his educational discussions. We started by walking around the reservoir, which even there he had good information. And then we went into the grove. And we counted 26 hikers, so probably one of the biggest groups I think we've ever had, plus Trails Committee, plus Peter representing the Friends of Washington Grove. So that was a really great hike. Our next scheduled guided hike is the second Saturday in December 14th at Sherwood Fields, starting at 10 a.m. We also, in this time frame, had a pop-up hike. So that's something that the Trails Committee started this year. And we took on the ambitious through hike from Spring Lake Park in Parrington to the Bay West Park in Irondequoit. So that traverses, I think, 6 parks in 4 towns, about 10.5 miles. Took us about 4 hours. Also had a very nice weather day. We didn't have a lot of people. We had 4 community hikers and 1 from the Trails Committee. I think we had a little bit of a communication problem getting that advertised, so we're going to try and improve on that in the future. But again, it was a really good hike, and I think a lot of people have expressed an interest in all the different types of pop-ups, from short hikes and historical hikes in the Four Corners to these long through hikes and lots of things in between. So Trails Committee has a lot of ideas for more of these in 2025. Also within the Trails Committee, the Passport program. So that's a program where there are markers in each of the parks, and you can get a booklet, and if you go to and hike that park and mark your program, you can bring that into the Recreation Department, and they have T-shirts, right? Mm-hmm. And so that booklet had gotten a little out of date, so the Trails Committee took that on this year and visited each of the parks, made sure the maps and the information was accurate, the markers were good. And I think Don Schaefer from the Trails Committee will be working with the town to get an updated brochure published. And then last on this list here is the active transportation plan that the town board has commissioned, I think, to maybe start in 2025. I'm not sure exactly what the status of that is from the town board's perspective, but the Trails Committee has information that I think is relevant. Certainly these through hikes align quite a bit with the theories behind and the concepts behind an active transportation plan. So I think the Trails Committee, has every intention of working with the town and whoever they commission to do that active transportation plan. Any questions regarding the Trails Committee?
No, I know for the Trails Passport, we're going to work to try, it might be a little bit longer of a process because we're trying to kind of do all of this at once. But one of the big heavy lifts will be updating all of the trail maps, just trying to get a little bit more kind of different, showing some landscape and things like that with some satellite views. So it might take some time, but I know Trails Committee has done a wonderful job, put a lot of time and effort into it. Now we just kind of wrap up with kind of everything rather than put the new information in and wait on the trail map. So
Yeah,
doing the heaviest lift so we don't have to do it too often.
Yeah, good. And another thing that may help when they get to that, the county parks within the town, like Ellison and Abraham Lincoln and Lucian Warren, the county has updated maps on their website too. So, there may be an opportunity to share some of that too.
Cool.
Okay?
Yep.
Penfield Parks. So, Tim, any?
Yeah, so what we got for updates is we're trying to get ready for winter. We wrapped up our summer season. We got all the goals put away. We stopped painting the athletic fields. We are currently cleaning up leaves around the baseball field, stuff like that, cutting down the winter grasses, and just getting our plow markers ready for our winter season. So pretty standard this time of year.
When do you take the tennis nets down?
So it's all weather dependent. It's been a little better this year, so we're going to leave them up for just a little longer.
Okay.
But sooner than the weather's starting to turn, so next couple weeks I can imagine that they'll be down. I know we're still working on, we might leave a couple up like we did last year, but we have to talk about where and what park we're going to leave them up. So there's still the option to play over the winter time.
Okay. Is that the same for the pickleball?
Same for the pickleball. Yep.
Yeah, traditionally, we've had in the last couple of years, Greenwood Park remain open, which is tennis and pickleball, with the Shadow Pines courts being open up and their pickleball only, and those bathrooms being year-round. I imagine some of them will be open, probably not all of them, but we're also looking at keeping Greenwood open as well, just for some possible tennis. So we'll update that as it comes out.
So how about the disc golf course? Do you do anything to winterize that, or is that?
Nope, that's year-round.
That's year-round as is, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the only thing that happens is they replace the brooms with snow shovels.
That's good. Good point.
So that's what we got going on in the parks.
Okay, thank you. Recreation Department, Andrew?
Yep, I did just want to touch on the parks update, the multi-use trail project that Further Trail Services is doing. We kind of had a hiatus over the summer, working with Adam from Further Trail Services, but we are hopefully restarting the conversation in the upcoming weeks, really to look at that multi-use trails that would happen on the south side of Shadow Pines. I know members of this group and others have done walks, whether it was the summer or spring with Adam, who had presentations back when we were doing community input sessions for our master plan. But hopefully in the upcoming months, sitting down with him, kind of go over everything, something will be presented to the board or this group.
Okay. Have you talked to him? Do you know that I think the West Hill project, which was consuming a lot of his time, they had a grand opening, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's done and available?
Within these last 2 weeks, he was wrapping up that project and then hoping to shift over and restart the conversation with us. So I'll keep everyone updated. But the hopes would be in the upcoming months to have some sort of a plan presented if wanted by a town board or this group or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
So then, to the recreation update, we're currently working on our winter-spring 2025 brochure. That is going to get finalized by our printer this week, which means it'll be out around Thanksgiving to residents' mailboxes and posted online. Because this brochure covers winter-spring, which is January through the end of May, ton of great information, programs, things like that. One of the big things that we're highlighting is 2025 summer camp, which I know we've talked about with this board and gotten great feedback from the community. We are planning to, typically in the past, we would open up summer camp registration just like we would any of the other winter-spring programs, but we are going to have summer camp open up in the beginning of March, and the date is going to be March 3rd. It's a Monday. And we had, just like our other programs for winter, spring, it would open up online at midnight. We decided to move that just because it is a little bit newer. So on March 3rd, it is going to be at 10 a.m. It'll be online and in person, but the thought was kind of because it's new, our lodges do it at 10 a.m. as well for their reservations, so it's always good to have some staff on hand to walk some people through it. But a lot of the feedback we've gotten helped us kind of get there, and we also got some guidance from town board and their approval for these kind of moves. We're happy to say that the fee structure for 2025 will stay the same as 2024, which is also the same as 2023 and 2022. So just really lucky to work with our town board and our finance department and supervisor to really keep, these costs as minimal as possible to the public and Penfield residents. So very happy, looking forward to 2025 summer camp.
So the March is the open registration date? Last year it was earlier, right?
Last year it was December, just like our
December.
other programs for winter, spring. So that'll be a big shift. We're hoping to, we're always battling staffing and getting as many, sites open to create obviously as many participants as possible.
Right.
But also having it in March, hopefully we're able to have more staff at that point and then have a better idea of, opening up our locations. Currently in this brochure, we're only advertising our same 2 locations of Scribner and PCC. We were really close to be able to open a 3rd site at Harris Whalen last year at our lodge. It just didn't work out with some of the staffing numbers that we had, so we're hopeful this year, and hopefully by March, if we can add it, of course, it'll be ready to go, and therefore, I think, reduce some stress for, people that are planning and reserving it, but also some of the clerical work with cancellations and transfers and wait lists. So hoping these changes, work out the best for everyone involved, and we'll kind of see how it goes in March. And then, kind of like what I was talking about with the lodges and open shelters, those reservations will begin December 4th at 10 a.m. And that is strictly for Penfield residents, starting on December 4th, so all of 2025 open shelters and lodges. Just a couple of the updates are really adding the Shadow Pines open shelter as a reservable shelter between May and October, starting in 2025. I know there's probably people watching, as we were just talking about pickleball and things like that. With the Shadow Pines pickleball courts, we held off doing any reservations in 2024 just because they're new and we want as many people to use them as possible. We will start as a recreation program or as a department programming on those courts in 2025 in the spring, but we'll also be taking reservations. If anybody has any questions, they can contact the rec department to go over those details and I can walk them through it. And that's pretty much a wrap up for the rec department.
I'm sure the feedback is very positive, but what have you heard so far regarding the pickleball courts and the playgrounds?
Yep, a lot of positive. Of course, there's always some things to tweak, and we're kind of, again, using this fall to, examine some of the ways that, we can utilize those courts, add some things to help from, balls trickling in different ways, but
Yeah,
overall pretty
all
positive.
in all positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, all in all very positive. The playgrounds are getting used every day.
playgrounds,
They're getting
Right.
everything's getting used every day. So that's a win in my book.
So I had someone ask me yesterday about lighting. Is there a plan to illuminate the courts
So that is
In a subsequent phase?
Yes, that's a capital improvement project that we're going to eventually take to the town board and have them vote on it, that type of deal to finish up that project.
Yeah,
So-
the conduits are in place.
I was going to say.
That's what somebody.
So those are there.
Yeah.
It just, the board, because they were using ARPA funds in the beginning for a lot of this project, decided to kind of hold off that piece, but put the conduit in just for the next level. But I know with some recent ARPA funds that have come in, the discussion started again. So it may happen sooner rather than later, but again, just kind of in discussion. But it's nice that kind of the framework is already there and
Yeah.
less cost to move forward. Because
Yeah.
I think we all kind of believe that down the road at some point, it's nice to have lights at those sort of amenities.
Okay. I'm sorry, I meant to ask about the Sherwood Field Scout project. Do you know if that was
I haven't had any update on that. The only update that I had was we haven't heard from the scout that the Parks Department cleared the way with the big trees.
Yeah.
Haven't heard anything back from the scout.
We bought and provided the materials, and I believe he was going to do it, this probably would have been 3 or 4 weekends ago.
Right.
But haven't heard a follow-up. We actually saw him at the town board meeting, and I forgot to mention, there was many, many scouts at the, at the meeting, so I was kind of making my way through, but we'll contact him and get some of those details.
Our next Trails Committee hike is at Sherwood, so I'll be
I'll
checking
keep you
it out,
posted.
too. Okay, next on the agenda, the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update.
So we as a committee presented the rough draft to the town board at their last legislative meeting. And it went under discussion after a presentation, and the town board is going to take some time to continue to review it. Just, I think with all the great feedback and community input we had, it was probably a little bit too much, and they wanted to get some more feedback and review it. So we're looking at the next work session, having that discussion. But I would like to say the current draft that was presented to the board is available on the town's website and can be reviewed. If there's any, feedback, they can certainly, email, stop into the rec department. I know we are at the very late stages of that plan, which is a very fluid plan, but really just looks at these next 5 years and kind of benchmarks some things for the rec and parks.
Okay. Wow, this is going pretty quickly tonight. Under held items, we carry action items that have not been resolved, and Linda has an action item to look into the Shadow Pines property versus.
So I do have an update for that one.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I
didn't
was
say it before.
expecting with Linda not being here, okay.
Yep, she did reach out because she knew that was a held action, and she just wanted to say that she is still continuing to gather some information. But she does have the hopes in early 2025 to kind of bring some of that information to this board just for general discussion. I do know, kind of like what we've talked about before, and she's mentioned the stuff that she shared with Tim and I. It did have pros and cons for both sides, so I don't think it's an easy, point straight to one answer and it makes sense. So
Right.
I think she's still got some more collecting to do, and certainly, I'm sure, conversations with the board, the supervisor, and especially town attorney are in the future for that kind of stuff. But she did want to mention that she's making some headway and finding some information.
Okay, thank you. I didn't expect that. Then the other one that we have is establish a process for renting and loaning. I actually thought that was kind of closed because you've given us a good status.
Yep.
But I know you were also hoping to maybe work with somebody who would
Yeah,
administer a
we were
loan?
hoping to have at least the pickleball renting of equipment open for when the courts at Shadow Pines opened. Through conversations that we had with many different people, it kind of just seemed like if we wanted to do it all, we would do it all at once, so we didn't have some of the other pieces like bocce and disc golf and things like that fully established yet. So we're looking as our goal for spring of 2025 to come out with that program for people to use stuff. But I think bocce, disc golf, pickleball especially. We talked about doing it internally where it's only through the rec department. We've met with some companies that kind of have ability for you to come up with your phone and, download their app and rent it for a fee. We're kind of working through some of those details, but ultimately, I think it'll be kind of rec started and internal in spring in 2025.
Is
And then we see
the
where it
plan
goes.
to have that out of the rec center? So that's where people would pick it up, or
I
is that
think
still up in the air?
That was kind of why we were looking at external companies that might be able to do it, so people that show up and want the things right there would have that ability, but there's, of course, fees and other things associated with that, where we were thinking of maybe just starting it at the rec department, where you contact us, you pick it up, you sign something, and try to make it as, free as possible. I know with some pickleball, we've met with some organizations that might be able to donate some rackets. I know disc golf did, so thank you so much. So we're hoping to keep it as cheap as possible and really just getting equipment out to people for them to try it and then potentially use it at either rec programs or on their own.
I think it's probably less of a hassle getting the equipment than it is trying to establish what the process is to get the equipment out in the hands.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Okay, good update. Under old business, the Channing Philbrick Park Trail Bridge Replacement
Yeah,
Project, I
we
think.
had the bid opening. There was about 5 companies that we did the bid opening this past Friday, on the 8th. We had some promising numbers, and now we're going to bring those numbers to the town board at the next work session to see what they want to decide on that. So the numbers there's a couple that looked really good, so hopefully we're moving in the right direction. But presenting that to the town board the next work session.
At the next work session?
Yes, yep.
Wow, that's fabulous. That's fairly fast.
Yeah.
To get
I
responses.
believe it's the next work session. Sure,
Yeah,
let's say that.
Still projecting the project for 2025.
Correct.
that's really good news. Okay.
It just closes down the bridge area while they're doing it, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't close out the
Yeah,
park or.
yep,
anything.
Honey Creek Trail would still be open. That's the one, once you get to the bridge, if you're heading from Channing Philbrook, if you're heading east, you can still go up the hill towards Mott's Lane. That would shut down from basically that area. We're gonna have to contact Parrington to shut down their end or have signs, and then where our wooden truss bridge is, we'd have to shut that down there so they can
Right.
work on those.
Right? Yeah. It's a necessary evil. at this
Necessary
point.
evil. Then
And
we
that-
can,
Ideally, they'll finish it in one construction season.
Correct.
and- Right, and I think that's what
yep,
the proposals were, so.
yes.
Excellent, very good news. Public feedback. Do either of you folks have anything you'd like to discuss while you're here?
Do you want to come up
Sure, please.
so that everybody can hear me? I usually don't have a problem. Tim, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Your team did an excellent job mowing the upper fairway, so thanks. You
Yep.
did exactly what you said you were going to
Yep.
do.
We try.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that looks great, by the way. I think I told you that. If I didn't.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
If
Thank
I
you,
didn't,
thank
I
you.
meant to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's one of the differences from last year for me, and my name is Keith McPhail, by the way. Sorry about that. You need an address, or can we skip that so my house doesn't get egged?
Penfield resident.
think we can skip
I'm a Pen-
Resident?
Yeah, since '99. Actually, a little bit before that. One of the earlier mowings in one section had been really short. It was on a tee area, and that was my very first glimpse of what I call the South Nine. But the guys, whoever was doing it on the team, it's about this long, pretty much uniformly everywhere, which is great. There's still some cover, right? And I'm positive that what my first experience was last year was just that particular area. I'm not saying good or bad. It's just, it gives the fauna a little bit more room to to live through the winter because it's 5 or 6 inches long, right? Instead of it being billiard table length. All right, so the reason that I'm here with Megan in the back is that she and I had separately had an interest with regard to the South Nine, and in particular, well called the flora, right? The plant life. And the biodiversity, in a greater way, the biodiversity that's in the South Nine. Now, I've since joined Color Penfield Green, and I've since had a brief conversation with Tim back in probably March, I guess I want to say, because I'd come to the town and volunteered to pay for 3 chestnut trees. This is before I knew that there was sort of a chestnut tree debacle going on with the University of New York, very unfortunately for all of us. And Tim we had actually staked out a place up in the high fairway to put them in. We also found out, his team gave me the name of some nurseries that we could not find any hybrids that were a high percentage of American chestnut, low percentage of Chinese chestnut, and about 3 inches, I think, was your minimum, right, for survivability. Yeah.
2 to 3, 2.5 to 3.
Yeah, he's spot on. I mean, anything thinner than that might get eaten, whatever. But what happened is that with the sort of crisis with the chestnut trees, I met Megan and Color Penfield Green, and we've sort of joined forces in an attempt to, let's call it, help nudge very gently the flora in South Nine. That's our intention. I'm not saying we've done anything other than maybe throw a few seeds from our own wild native gardens into the South Nine. And to that point, we've had some very limited success with some Joe Pye weed taking root along the stream. It did it on its own, cast it to the wind and see what happens, and we got a strike. We would like to come back in next month's meeting.
Yeah, which is actually, we'll get to that in the close, but typically these meetings are the second Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
Yep.
But in December, I think there's a conflict for PCTV on the 10th, and it will be the 17th, so.
Yeah, we'll follow it. And what Megan and I would like to do is come to this discussion, and we're trying to establish a partnership with the town, a citizen-town partnership, free labor, free expertise. Megan happens to be a master gardener, and so she has a very thorough perspective of what's going on there. And you may have seen me bring in a paper bag. It actually has roots from the teasels. They're an invasive species from up on the top of the fairway, because we're investigating the root structure. They're highly invasive, and it's very difficult to get rid of them along with some of the other things. But it's one of those things where a group like people with our interest could help the town just from our enthusiasm. I just happened to have retired back at the end of May, and this has been one of my interests for years. And before, when I lived outside of Boston, it was the same thing a long time ago. So that's sort of a compacted summary of our desire. And we don't want the next meeting to be off the cuff. Megan's going to go back to the membership. She has, can we say 3 to 5 people at the moment that might be interested in forming this small core group? It might be a bit of an expansion for the organization, because this is a large project in terms of acreage. But unlike, I'll say, your job, where you have to cover the whole expanse, right? We can concentrate in certain areas to show results. And so there's an aspect, and I'll wrap this up.
You're okay.
It's not just an aspect of, can we do something about pulling out the invasive species and letting the native species have more room to breathe, there's a big part of our thought about enhancing the space such that the children especially, and Megan and I had streams and woods behind our houses when we were growing up, so this is part of our sort of genetic mental makeup. Try to create an enhancement, whether through wildflowers or something like that, where you come onto the property and it pulls you in, which I think is what we all want. And I know there's talking to Linda Teglash back in the March, April timeframe. She's sort of strongly put out, we need to think about sort of a multiple use for the area. There's a lot of acreage there. She even said, do you guys want to teach a class in the stream? Because when I was growing up, we used to find newts and salamanders and things like that. So we would like to help, I think, is the basic message. And Megan represents a store of knowledge concerning the flora, which could be very helpful. I don't know about the other people we'll bring in, and I'm certainly the least knowledgeable of the small group at the moment, but that's why I'm here. I'm learning, right? And it is a pleasure to see you again.
Everybody's learning.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely.
I think it's a timely idea, because with this multi-use trail project, that's being worked on, I think, what I expect he'll be presenting our trails along the creek and maybe up along the ridge and that
Right.
high area and, in better grades and sight lines, and to consider where trees might go, or a small grove of trees, whether it's chestnuts or some elms that are also trying to be recovered, and I know there are elms available, so there's any number of ways to do that, and wildflowers. I think, once the plan for those trails is even before they're built necessarily, once you know where they're going, the kinds of things you're proposing, I think, would dovetail very well with that.
Yeah, so what the subject matter we're basically dealing with fits into that puzzle as a very slow, literally and figuratively, a very slow grower, right? Just
Yeah.
broadcast seeding some
Yeah.
native grasses, small grasses, right, 12 inches, but they're clumpy, unlike what we grow here, which are individual seedlings, and they're very smooth, looks like a carpet. Most of the native grasses tend to be clumps. The rabbits, moles, and voles run between them, nest there, the whole thing. That happens very, very slowly. And so prepping both thought and action, and I suppose I owe you an apology for that 5-year plan conversation, Tim. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I popped a 5-year plan in front of him unexpectedly, and he made absolutely the right move, which was, yeah, let's talk about that. So here we are.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's a beautiful property even already. Those are enhancements, but I know, I lead guided hikes there at different times of year, and there's always a different variety of flowering wildflowers. I know some of them are
Right.
non-native. Many of them are native, though. That's,
Well, that upper terrace or fairway, whatever you want to call it, definitely seemed to have bloomed more milkweed this year, at
Yeah.
least in my opinion, and less of the teasel. And in the lower area, when you walk in, there's a formal walk-in area at the end of the driving range, and then on the other side of the trees, there's the path that the team cuts, right? That was just covered in milkweed, and then Queen's Anne lace. So it's really, I know, bad pun, but it's really blossomed in the past year, and that's due to basically minimal care, and that's why I use the term nudge.
yeah.
You can just nudge it a little bit in some places, and it will start to react on its own. All right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
how it
that was
works.
really it. So we'd like to come back next month with a little bit more, and we can talk privately if we want to about what would be an interested subject matter for this
Sure.
group. And if you want us to say what steps we would like to take,
Yeah, I
Right?
don't know if my mic is on, but I think that would be helpful, is just sort of what role you propose to sort of play.
Yep.
You know, what you want to undertake and what sort of guidance you would provide, just so we have a better sense of.
yeah, happy to.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Makes perfect
And
sense.
very helpful.
Speaking for Tim, one of the concerns we always have is ongoing maintenance. It all sounds great now while you're here and involved in doing that, but, we have to look to the future too, and we don't want to leave maintenance activities, right, Tim? I mean, preaching to the choir.
Pretty masked.
But what you're talking about, to me, doesn't sound like you're putting in anything that would require ongoing maintenance, trees and natural grasses and wildflowers, so.
Yeah, and personally, I'm going to stay away from trees. The chestnut offer has been taken off the table, because trees get big, they drop branches, they're dangerous sometimes, I mean, and, no, don't get me wrong, my property's full of trees. And I grew up in that environment.
Right.
But grasses, we're really talking about substitutional aspects here. You want to take the invasive stuff out as well as you can without, digging pits into the ground. That's not part of our thought. And letting the native stuff in our conversation together. Tim and I agreed that we would love it if there were what's called a seed bank in the soil that could be given an opportunity to sprout. And it would do it all by itself. I'm sort of on the not so likely end of that, just because of the amount of herbicides and the duration they use them on the property. That's why but on the other side of it, Tim was very positive, saying, well, the seed bank might be there. You just don't know. You have to give it an opportunity. The mowing gives it an opportunity. Sometimes a little broadcast seeding gives it a little opportunity. And so those are the kinds of discussions that, and they're small discussions, that we would like to have in an organized fashion.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Thanks for the time. Sorry to chat around.
Thank you.
Yep,
Sure.
thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Pleasure to see you again.
Megan?
Hi, I'm Megan Meyer, and I am part of Color Penfield Green, and also I head up a Healthy Yards Monroe County program, and we have a wonderful group here in Penfield, which we've already collaborated with the town with a native plant garden at the library. We just put in one at the Penfield Community Garden on 5 Mile Line Road, and we have one at Willow Ponds that was just put in this year. The town board has approved the second year of the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, which is all about planting not only milkweed, but native plants. And each year they have to give that group the goals that they achieved, and many of those goals we have helped them achieve. And I see this project as being something that the town could use as one of the goals for the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. So I just wanted to add that, and we'd love to see more plants out there that are native to New York State. And it'd be great for not only the pollinators, but people that are walking and biking in there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Points taken, thanks, Megan.
Is there any thought to doing anything on the north side where the disc courses and some of those kind of wild areas to do something with because it's nice now, I just wondered, are anything there considered invasive that needs to be replaced or should be replaced, or?
Yeah, there's always an opportunity.
I mean, you say the wild areas on the north side, there's not much.
Yeah, there's not much left.
They're pretty
There's-
small
There's
spaces.
some chunks that.
But there are
like,
some
Steve, I was gonna make a joke about your disc golf game and trampling flowers and stuff thrown outside, but I couldn't think of it fast enough.
I would definitely be that guy.
No, I'm just kidding. Pretty much, I don't know if we consider the north side done. It's pretty full, packed. I know once we get the trails established, that's part of our plan, getting names for them and all that stuff, getting the trails established. I think we're onto the focus of the old back nine. So
Okay.
I think that's an opportunity for us to start fresh on the back nine.
Perfectly fine with
Just my
that.
opinion, but I think that the north half is already pretty much like not all done, because there's always opportunities, but
Yeah, I think the south side, like Don said, this is extremely timely, and, all the kudos in the world to Megan, and, I want to speak for the rec department, the library, all the programs that she runs, that Color Penfield Green runs, are heavily attended and well enrolled in. We're usually maxing out for those sort of things, so I know it sounds like more ability to educate and get that stuff out on the south side is, definitely going along with, what's intended uses were, multi-use trails with, open land and things like that. So having the ability to educate and do that stuff, I think, is an awesome opportunity. So, looking forward to continue to work with you and on all that you guys do.
To the point of education, in the places that you've established already, do you have like plaques or like, learning materials, like, not posters, but
Signage.
like signage?
Signage.
Yeah, so not only for education, but to recognize the work that's been done and the effort that it takes to do it, I think that would be great too.
Yeah, we do not have signs yet, but I know we sat down with Sarah Waterman and Tim, and we were talking a little bit about signage so that people would know at least, why we were doing some of these things and that kind of thing. So that would be great. The other thing is several towns have already moved forward and they have started their own pollinator pathways. The town of Pittsford and the town of Brighton has their own pollinator pathway, and they're encouraging their residents to plant natives, and they actually have signs, and they've collaborated with their Color Your Communities Green. And I think the town of Pittsford is actually they funded the signs for their residents, and the town of Brighton collaborated with their Color Brighton Green, and I think Color Brighton Green is purchasing the signs, and people go to the rec center to fill out their application to say that they're, they have they have native plants on their property, and then they get a sign that they can put up. So we know that from what we've heard, we have an extreme lack of, we are losing birds every year. I think 1 in 4 birds has disappeared over the last probably 50 years. And we know that our insects are in steep decline as well. So this is just something that we can do and be proactive in our own yards and also in our town, which is, and we can kind of let people know about that.
So really, when you come back in December, you can talk about signage to come along with the ideas, right?
Absolutely. Sounds
Because it's
great.
easy to talk about it, but to actually get it done, let's tie it to something tangible,
Sounds good.
okay? Back to, you were asking on the north side, does the disc golf community want anything in trees to make, just
No,
from the
I mean,
course perspective, or?
Two thoughts with that. Just, there's a couple areas that it might be aesthetically
Okay,
nicer than it is now, but it's really good now. I'm more worried about what Tim was kind of getting to, us trampling all through it and not knowing that something was being done there. So we
Yeah.
just want to make sure that we would kind of rope it off or that kind of thing. But if there's nothing going on the north side there, or nothing planned for the north side, it's fine.
Yeah, if you want to send me those areas, like via email, like what you were kind of thinking, like
Okay.
around whatever tees and stuff, we'll take a look and.
Yeah, the one thing is that one tee area around 8.
Yep.
That kind of is lots of poison ivy in
Yep,
there.
yep,
And Craggy, that would be nice to have something a little bit more pleasing in there, so. that's-
I'd call that a hazard.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't go through there, yeah.
I could show you my forearms.
And again, I think that, this discussion overall on the north side too, as much as the focus now is moving on to the south with some of the projects, the north side too, at least from the trails, it's good to know some of these areas as we're starting to establish, okay, what are the actual trails and that system that's going to happen on the north to connect down to the south as we look to, connect multiple parks and different areas of Penfield. So as that get established too, it's good to know some possible areas that we can pre-plan to say, hey, maybe this is a section. Doesn't mean we have to do it right now, but we can be a step ahead with our trail system to support that in the future, as we know that property has a lot of different things going on.
Okay, well, thank you, good discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that.
Thank you.
So that concludes the agenda. Again, our next meeting, typically the second Tuesday of the month, but in December, it will be the third Tuesday, so December 17th at 6 PM.
Yep. And I did just
Oh,
want to
sorry.
mention before we adjourn, sorry.
Yeah.
I know we've had a couple of vacancies on our advisory board for 2024 as schedules changed and things like that. So I appreciate, everyone that's still on the committee, and, if you're still interested in staying, great. But as 2025 approaches, I just wanted to kind of put it out there that if people are interested in becoming a part of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, you can reach out to the supervisor's office and send an email with a resume and a letter of intent of why you would want to be on this board. And then that'll be reviewed as we look towards 2025. And of course, I, reach out to everybody that's currently on the board and say thank you so much. If any of your plans are changing or anything like that, let us know sooner than later, and we'll plan for next year. But always great to have the same people or similar voices and
Right.
some history behind the board.
Yeah,
So
so
thank you.
for anyone who is not aware, this is a 12-month volunteer position, right, the board. So every December, we wrap up for the year, and then we'll go into the next year with, the board as it appears come January. Okay, with that, we will adjourn. It is 6:47. Thank you all.